We need to revisit Clause 5 immediately. We will not move forward until these specific terms are renegotiated.
You ever walk into a room and just know you're not supposed to be there? Not because you aren't qualified. You are, maybe overqualified, but because you don't look like the wallpaper. That was my life until I met Mr. Thorne. My name is Aisha Coleman. I was 26, summa cum laude from Hampton, and yes, I speak 9 languages. But when I walked into the Manhattan penthouse office of Elias Thorne, CEO of Thorne Global Holdings, none of that mattered. He was the kind of CEO who smelled like old money and new leather, perched behind a desk the size of a small car. He glanced at my resume for maybe 4 seconds, then looked up at me with eyes as cold as a February morning on the Hudson. "I don't know what diversity initiative signed off on this," he drawled, his voice dripping with contempt. "But this interview is over." Hampton? Affirmative action special, I'm guessing. He didn't wait. 9 languages, really? Community college Spanish doesn't count, sweetheart. My knuckles went white gripping my portfolio. 9 languages wasn't a hobby for me. It was survival. My dad, a Nigerian immigrant, used 3 dialects just to argue with his suppliers. My mom, she mastered French and Creole just to keep her nursing shifts. Languages were how we bridged the gap, how we survived the bureaucracy of New York. I'd spent summers teaching English in refugee camps, perfecting my Russian with families in Brighton Beach, writing a graduate thesis on cultural intelligence that professors across 7 countries actually read. "Sir, if you would just look at my consulting experience." His mahogany resume folder hit the trash with a deliberate, sickening thud. "I've seen enough. Marcus, escort this applicant out. And next time, screen these people better." The word people hung in the air like a cloud of toxic gas. I was being dismissed like yesterday's trash. But in exactly 97 minutes, that same man would be begging me to save the largest deal in his company's history, a deal worth $1.5 billion. You just know when your prejudice is about to become your downfall, right? The elevator doors hadn't even fully closed behind me when chaos erupted. I could hear it through the open office door when Chloe, Thorne's frantic executive assistant, burst in. "Mr. Thorne, the Hanzo Consortium just called. They're threatening to pull out of the acquisition. The entire deal is collapsing over communication issues. The Hanzo deal, $1.5 billion, 7 different countries involved. It was Thorne's legacy. It was the thing that would prove he wasn't just a trust fund kid running his grandfather's empire. Get the interpreter team on a conference call. We'll sort this out," he snapped. "Sir," Chloe stammered, holding up her shaking phone. "The entire interpretation service canceled. Food poisoning from the company lunch. All 12 native speakers for Japanese, German, Russian, Arabic, Italian, Mandarin, and Portuguese. They're all in the ER. We have 2 hours." His $1 million Italian leather shoes were ruined by the hot coffee that shattered on the marble floor. 7 countries, 7 languages, 7 different ways his family's empire was about to crumble because he couldn't speak a single foreign word beyond espresso. He stared at his trash can. Crumpled, coffee-stained paper. A resume detailing 9 languages. The answer to his prayers, the one person who could fix this linguistic earthquake, was the person he had tossed away like garbage 3 minutes ago. "The girl," he whispered. "The one I just—" Where did she go? I was standing in the marble lobby, feeling the humiliation burn, frozen by pride. That's when Thorne's voice, desperate and loud, echoed from his open office speakerphone. "Hanzo's son is speaking too fast. I can't understand what he's saying. This deal is dying." Rapid-fire Japanese poured through the speaker, agitated, hostile. My head tilted instinctively. 2 years in Kyoto, living with a host family who spoke no English. My feet moved before my mind could stop them. I appeared in his doorway. "Excuse me." I couldn't help but overhear. Thorne's face. Man, it was priceless. It cycled through confusion, recognition, and then raw, animal hope in 3 seconds flat. You're still here?" I stepped into the chaos. "Mr. Hanzo is saying the cultural integration clause violates traditional Japanese business protocols. He's concerned about losing face with his board if the signing ceremony doesn't honor proper hierarchies." The room went dead silent. Even the voices from Tokyo paused. Thorne could only mouth the words, "You understood all of that?" I continued, my confidence building with every word. He's also questioning whether Americans can truly understand international partnership. Your previous negotiations showed disrespect for their customs. Bang! The phone rang again. Angry German voices. The German partners are frustrated because your team doesn't understand their regulatory concerns. I translated without missing a beat. They're saying the compliance framework you proposed violates European Union banking laws. Thorne sank into his chair, looking like a puppet whose strings had been cut. Chloe was staring at me like I'd just performed magic. How are you doing this? Another call. Portuguese, crackling with indignation from Sao Paulo. The Brazilians are upset because they feel your team doesn't respect Latin American business culture. Yesterday's video call was culturally insensitive. I translated seamlessly. Thorne's world tilted on its axis. The woman he dismissed as a charity case was casually translating complex international business disputes in real time. Then came the Moroccan partners in Arabic. They're concerned about Islamic banking compliance. I relayed immediately. Your contract structure conflicts with Sharia law regarding interest and investment partnerships. 4 years of Harvard Business School. That expensive degree suddenly felt like toilet paper. He never learned that different cultures have different banking laws. Russian voices erupted next. The Russians are demanding guarantees about intellectual property protection. They want assurance that American patent laws won't override their technology rights. Then Chinese. The Chinese partners are reconsidering the entire relationship, I said, my voice heavy with cultural context. They're saying Thorne Global doesn't demonstrate the cultural intelligence necessary for serious international business. Thorne looked at the woman he'd called worthless 30 minutes ago. Who are you? He breathed. I met his gaze, and for the first time, I allowed myself to smile. I'm Aisha Coleman, summa cum laude, fluent in 9 languages, and apparently the only person in this building who can save your billion-dollar empire. The silence stretched. Finally, Thorne spoke, his voice barely a whisper, broken and desperate. What do you want? I realized something profound right then. For the first time in my life, I held all the power. I had been underestimated so many times that excellence had become my default setting. I wasn't just fluent in 9 languages, I was fluent in survival. And I knew exactly what I wanted. Mr. Olivera's patience is at its limit, I translated calmly. He feels Americans don't understand Brazilian business culture at all. What did we do wrong? Your team interrupted him 17 times yesterday, which in Brazilian culture shows profound disrespect. You also rushed through relationship building, which they consider essential. They're saying your approach treats them like a transaction, not a partnership. I didn't wait for his instruction. I began responding in perfect, warm, apologetic Portuguese. The change was immediate. The angry voices softened, became curious. They're asking who I am, I explained to Thorne. They want to know why they're finally hearing someone who understands their perspective. I watched him swallow his pride like broken glass. Tell them, he commanded. Tell them you're our new director of cultural relations. My eyebrows went up, but I translated smoothly. The Brazilian's response was immediate, enthusiastic, demanding that I lead all future cultural integration discussions. There's more, I continued, listening to the Portuguese. They're also mentioning a legal concern your team missed. Brazilian environmental law requires specific compliance measures for international acquisitions. Your current contract structure violates their sustainability requirements. Thorne's legal team had missed a major environmental compliance issue, something I knew from my graduate thesis on international environmental law in emerging markets. His Harvard MBA suddenly felt like a participation trophy. We need to discuss this, Thorne stammered, trying to regain control. Privately, I asked, looking at his senior VP, Marcus, who had materialized by the window. Someone who understands the corporate hierarchy here. Marcus chimed in, stepping forward. My laugh was soft, bitter, and entirely genuine. You mean someone who looks like you? I walked over to his desk, opened my portfolio, and began pulling out documents, the improper credentials. Recommendation from Professor Hanzo at Tokyo University. Consulting work for the European Union on cross-cultural communication. Published research in the Harvard International Review on Emerging Market Dynamics. Sorbonne, American University in Cairo, where I studied Islamic banking principles. Each paper landed on his desk like a slap in the face. I picked up the trash can, walked back, and dumped its contents onto his marble desk. Coffee grounds, crumpled papers, and my stained resume spread across the surface like evidence at a crime scene. This is what you thought of my qualifications. I saved your partnership, I identified legal issues your attorneys missed, and I repaired cultural damage your team didn't even know they'd caused. I did it all while you questioned whether I belonged here. The Japanese partners are calling back in 15 minutes, I stated, my voice filling the room like thunder. You have two choices: keep questioning my credentials while your empire collapses, or admit that maybe you don't know everything about running a global company. He trembled, then reached for the phone. Put them through. The room filled with voices from around the world. I moved like a conductor. Japanese to introduce myself with perfect cultural courtesy. German to address European banking regulations. Russian to reassure them about intellectual property. My seamless transitions between languages revealed mistake after catastrophic mistake made by his properly credentialed team. But the hostility was melting. Collaboration was sparking. The partners were smiling. They want to create an international cultural business charter. I translated, my voice filled with wonder. They want us, Thorn Global, to lead the initiative. Thorn looked at me, speechless. He had almost destroyed his company. I had just secured its role as a revolutionary force in global commerce. Done, he said, cutting off any debate. Done. I want you to design cultural competency training for our entire senior staff. I'm offering you the position of Chief Cultural Integration Officer. Starting salary 180, direct report to the board, your own team, your own budget. I finally sat down. Why? Because 30 minutes ago, he admitted, staring into his scotch, I was the CEO of a failing company who just thrown away the one person who could save it. You didn't just save my deals, Aisha. You showed me what real leadership looks like. That night, alone in the executive break room, I saw Carmen, the evening cleaning supervisor. She wheeled her cart in and stopped, seeing me. Oh, I'm sorry, miss. I didn't know anyone. Please don't apologize, I replied, switching easily to Spanish. I was just taking a moment to breathe. Her eyes widened. You speak Spanish? I heard what happened today, the woman who saved Mr. Thorne's company. She paused, then whispered, I've cleaned his office for 8 years. I've seen him do that to others like us. I looked up sharply. Others like us. Carmen pulled out her phone. That's me. Doctorate in biochemistry from Universidad Nacional Colombia. My credentials aren't recognized here, so I clean offices. But you showed them that intelligence doesn't have a uniform. Tears pricked my eyes. I was so focused on proving myself to Thorne, I never thought about everyone else watching. Carmen reached into her cart and pulled out a small, delicate paper flower folded from a coffee shop napkin. My daughter taught me this. She says, when you throw away something beautiful, it doesn't stop being beautiful. It just waits for someone to notice. She placed it in my palm. You didn't just save his company, Aisha. You showed every Carmen, every Miguel, every Fatu in this building that our worth isn't determined by other people's blindness. That paper flower became the anchor for my new life. A month later, Thorne walked onto the stage at the shareholders' meeting, his usual arrogance replaced by authentic humility. 35 days ago, I made the most expensive mistake of my career. I dismissed someone without reading her qualifications. I let prejudice cloud my judgment. Then he introduced me. I stepped to the podium and projected my own, coffee-stained resume onto the screen. This is where my qualifications ended up 35 days ago. All of it was dismissed in 30 seconds because it didn't match someone's expectations. I didn't attack them. I showed them the numbers. 43% revenue increase from global ops thanks to the Williams Protocol. Then I showed them the faces. Carmen in a lab coat, leading our environmental compliance. Miguel, a former security guard with a master's in economics, now managing our Latin American partnerships. Ladies and gentlemen, the most expensive mistake in business isn't a bad investment. It's overlooking genius because it doesn't match your expectations. The standing ovation started slowly, then became deafening. I looked out at the room, the pinnacle of American power, and realized the victory wasn't my new title. It was proving that when one door opens for someone like me, it becomes easier for the next person to walk through. 6 months later, I was standing at the UN General Assembly, addressing delegates from 193 countries. The question isn't whether talent is evenly distributed, I said from the podium. It is, The question is whether there will be an opportunity. The person cleaning your office might have advanced degrees. The delivery driver might speak 5 languages. We all have a Carmen we walk past every day. What potential are you missing because you haven't bothered to look up from your screen? If you've ever been underestimated because of where you went to school or where you come from, share this story. Tag someone who deserves recognition for their hidden talents. Like this video if you believe that excellence has no uniform, no accent, no pedigree. Subscribe if you want to see more stories about people who prove that the most expensive mistake in business is overlooking the genius standing right in front of you.